Did you notice we both have cats?
Yes.
I love that.
I love kitties.
My daughter got this for me.
Did she?
Yeah, for my birthday. Because she knows I love cats. Welcome to
Positively Literary,
a show where we talk about books, writing, stories, and author talk. Our topic today is poetry. And we have a very special guest who writes novels as well as poetry. And he has a YouTube channel with a lot of his poetry on there. So his name is Thorsten Nesch.
Thorsten Nesch. Hopefully we're saying that right.
Yeah. And he also sent in a segment. But I wanted to start with sharing one of his YouTube videos. It has images of Lethbridge, like has video of Lethbridge, and he did a poem about Lethbridge.
Did he take the pictures too?
You know, I'm not sure. I think it's video footage. It's actually really interesting, like black and white, and very poetic. So he reads the poetry over top of the footage, and then you get a better sense. I actually really liked it when I was watching it because it's like you visually also see the poetry. You're not just hearing it, you're also seeing it.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and it's called Southern Alberta Monochrome. It's kind of not dark, but more of a monochrome. I don't know. You guys watch it.
Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Everything out there looked stripped to the bone, withered by time and wind. The snow and the sun, the fields, the farms, the towns on the horizon. And the grain elevators rising like silent sentries, old ghosts guarding the memory of motion. Today, too, the sky mirrored the land, a kind of sky that has forgotten to be blue. The whole world looked like it had been dipped in ash and left to dry. The tires hummed a road lullaby across the cracked up asphalt, as if they wanted to help the kettle go to sleep. My notebook rode shotgun and open on the passenger seat, laughing at me, applauding my lack of ideas. Pages occasionally flapping, like broken wings of roadkill trying to take off. Fences tick by like time markers, and me being the finger of a clock on speed. Wooden posts and sagging wires, both forgotten why they were tired. Slowing down for every town, Lethbridge, Colehurst, Fort Macleod. Each time the sound of the tires. Changed to a sigh compared to the humming on the open highway. Shuttered windows of diners and houses, abandoned and for sale, just as is. Bullet-bitten stop signs and traffic cones in ditches found a last place to rest. The earth gray. From all the stories pressed into dirt, stories and songs and dancing and drums, and boot heels and hooves stomping dry land of grain, dust and prayers. And layers and versions of stories and the tears of women who watched their men disappear. At one point I mumbled aloud, maybe the world forgets places on purpose. Or maybe the land is what forgets us. There's something sacred when you grab a fist of that archaic earth. Deep, bone deep, farm bones deep. I filled up at a gas station from the 50s, where a rusted out pump stood crooked, and a kid watched me from the corner of nowhere and nothingness, holding a bicycle tire like it was the last wheel in the world, and without him we would forget for what we headed. The two of us didn't acknowledge our presence, so I drove off, as if I was passing through time instead of space. The road never gave me answers. The road never does. The road opens horizons for tomorrow and what once was.
That was powerful.
Thank you, Thorsten. That was awesome. So our topic is poetry. I did want to mention, though, that some of Thorsten's books, one of his latest books is called Lethbridge 2112. It's a dystopian.
Ooh, that sounds actually really good.
A dystopian that takes place in Lethbridge. So it says Lethbridge in the year 2112. Arthur faces a life or death decision, and then he runs into Mina in this gray world where colors are expensive and the food comes from the kitchen tap.
Wow, that's cool. I'm actually interested in that.
And then he's got this, so this book, My Totem Came Calling, really interesting. CBC Books have to read YA novels of fall 2019.
Wow.
So that's really cool. And this book, I'll read this little blurb. Chanda is a 17-year-old schoolgirl in Harare, Zimbabwe, who suffers from unexplained memory lapses, which become even more worrisome when she starts seeing her totem animal, a zebra, in all sorts of places, but nobody else can see it. It's just such a dynamic, interesting book topics. And this one is called For a Spin, a road movie novel. It's funny because he uses the word movie in the title. The film rights of this novel are sold.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes film rights can be sold for a really long time before you finally see the film. This one is Tariq and Jesse borrow a car for a short joyride. They want to feel free just once, but they choose the wrong car, a mafia car. Oh, I could see that in a film. And then one of the other books is also a comedy for young adults. So yeah, I'm actually really interested in checking out some of Thorsten's work. And he does have, I have this one here, it's a poetry book. It's called Paris, Calgary. And I was really confused. I'm like, Paris, Calgary. But apparently there's an apartment building named Paris in Calgary.
Oh, really?
Or that's what I'm getting here.
Interesting.
And it was in 1998, 99. Even more interesting, especially with poetry. So yeah, we actually had Thorsten answer some questions for us.
Yes.
His YouTube channel, by the way, is called Poltergeist.
Poltergeist.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll put it on the, and he's got his other poetry on the YouTube channel. But we had Thorsten answer these questions for us. So the first question was, what is your creative process for crafting a poem? Do some of them progress over long periods of time, or are they written in one sitting? Which I think is a really interesting, because I don't write poetry. So is it something that you work out over like 3 years, or do you sit down and this is the mood, this is the...
Very emotional poetry is. Poetry isn't my strong suit either.
Yep.
It is for my husband, actually. My husband's really good at poetry.
I could see that because I've seen some of your TikToks and you tell me like, oh, this is something that he wrote, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. No, he's very, very poetic.
Right? It's like you have to be a certain, and you can just kind of tell when someone has the skill.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, and the second question was, have you used poetry to address sensitive topics or social issues, and what impact do you feel this has on the audience, like when you address sensitive issues and stuff? So I'm also curious because I don't know all of Thorsten's poetry. So here's Thorsten.
What is my process to write a poem? Yeah, so I write a lot in general speaking. I write also different forms of literature, also going into lyrics. So especially for poetry, I tried working on poetry, on poems that I wrote, and then revisit them a week later, a month, a year later. But I found out that 9 out of 10 times, if I change something, I pretty much change it back. So I'm not a poet that continuously works on a poem. I'm definitely somebody who likes to be in the zone, in the moment, and then having the time and the energy to write a poem from beginning to end. That can happen pretty much anywhere. I mention that because, like poetry, it was just a bird. With fiction, it is definitely the case that I need to be alone in a room, the classic way. While poetry, I wrote many poems on the train, public transit, in cafes, bars, outside, for example. And then it's about that moment. I like the term to be in the zone. I think for poetry, and I include the lyrics there as well, for songs, songwriting, for me it is the crucial moment to be just there. How am I in a zone? I still have a beer coaster from Germany that I got at a cafe outside in Cologne, and I was just on my own, and then the muse struck me and I felt like writing a poem, and I sat down at a cafe outside. It was in summer, and I was writing and just being in the zone until a beer coaster landed on my table, and I needed a second. I took a look at the coaster, and somebody wrote on there, "Can you smile?" And I looked up, and I was in my 20s, and she was in her 20s, a young woman crossing the street looking over her shoulder. And I smiled. So that's how much in the zone I am when I write a poem. I really don't observe or forget all my environment and my surroundings. The other, what am I writing about, or what kind of topics do I tackle in my poetry? Well, it can be, of course, from love or heartache to social or political criticism. Absolutely. It can be sad, it can be philosophical, it can be funny. Depends also on my mood, where I am in my life and in the day. I embrace the feeling or the emotion that I'm in, and as much as many in the past publishing houses, etc., wanted me to basically reproduce sequels to whatever, being it a novel or something. If it would work, it would work. That's what I say. It's like I'm not against it, but I'm just not 365 days in a year in the same mood and write a certain poetry, for example. how it is received by the public. So my first readings were my very first reading as a young late teenage man was a poetry reading in Germany, and in a secondhand bookstore. I was terribly nervous. I came prepared just with my poetry, with my poems on paper, and I read them like this, and I was so nervous in my first, it doesn't come natural, that by the end of a very short poem, the first one, the paper page was so wet that it kind of enveloped my fingers. So I never forget that. But I love the reactions. I love the responses by the audience, and I kept doing it, and I want to say I got better and less nervous, for sure. The response for the very different, also stylistically different poetry or poems of mine, I can't complain. Sometimes I'm surprised how open my audience is, like that they embrace also the diversity in style and in topics, and it always gives a lot of fertile ground for discussions afterwards. So I really, if I do a reading, at least half of the time I'm in a conversation with the audience. I totally like that moment. Maybe especially because as a writer, you're mostly alone, let's put it this way, especially, let's say, with a novel. I'm alone, and when I write a poem, I'm in my own world at least, although my physical body seems to be visible for other people.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Thorsten. Yes. Thank you for answering our questions. And that I've seen Thorsten. So when we were at Lethbridge,
Yes,
I saw him there. Have you probably saw him there too? But I never talked to him. And
I have to know what he looks like. I'm sorry, Thorsten. Better with like faces.
Yeah, and someone recommended his YouTube channel, and then I saw it, and I'm like, okay, we need to get him on the show.
Awesome.
And then I saw he had all these books, and like that one that CBC had said was like the read of the summer kind of thing, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, we don't know how much talent we have locally sometimes.
That's so true. I know certain events where the library goes seeking authors outside the city more than authors in the city. I've heard like a lot of authors say they're turning a blind eye to a lot of the talent that's actually here in the city. Not to take a jab at the library.
No,
I love you, library.
I'm always surprised too. Like, I didn't know all the works that Thorsten did, but you're right. I think the idea there is they're like, we'll get someone who is not quote unquote famous or something. And I remember one year they got someone from Ontario, and still Canadian, right? Had written some really interesting, like some really popular young adult books. So I know one of my friends was really excited, and she was signing books, and that's great. But we also have really good
We have some authors. Hidden gems here. We do.
Yeah, I think so too. And that was a while ago, so maybe they do have more local author efforts. But it's those events, right? Like Word on the Street.
Exactly. I was on Word on the Street last year. Actually, I got invited to it this year, but I decided not to do it.
Yeah. You know, Wordbridge, though, I feel really does have a lot of local authors. They come and they do presentations, and they have their books there, so that's really cool. And I love that we started that Lethbridge started Wordbridge.
Oh, I agree. I think it was needed.
I didn't go this last time.
I didn't either. Well, I'm in Calgary, so sorry, guys.
Yeah, I am in Lethbridge, but there was a work event that weekend, and there was another time that I missed something happening at Analog Books. You know what? It might have even been this next person I want to talk about, Jacob Lee Batchinger. I think he might have been doing a reading or something, and then I had a work event on the weekend that I had to attend.
Well, let's chat about that.
Yeah, so Jacob is a professor at the University of Lethbridge, and this is his poetry book. So he actually signed it. I love seeing what authors sign. And he said, "For the silence within."
Wow, that's
right?
That's so beautiful, and that's really like, that's a lot like you. Like, that's amazing.
It feels like, yeah.
It suits you. It's very tailor-made.
Yeah, and so I actually marked one of my favorite poems that I was reading in here. The thing I like about poetry books is you could read one poem a day, like one poem a night. I was reading this, it was by my nightstand, or you could read like a whole bunch. So this was one of the ones that I did kind of reread over, because usually I'm not used to reading poetry. I'm going to read this poem because it's not too long. It's called The First Snowfall. The sky will be featureless and ominous. Birds wheeling overhead will soon pass. White snow, black trees, parked cars. The birds gone, silence all around you, but not within you. Watching, you catch yourself thinking of something else, something nagging. Urge a cup of coffee, a cigarette, some small vice, some small comfort, something warm, something easy. So this was the part that I really enjoyed, was this last part. Some small vice, some small comfort, something warm, something easy. Because I was reading these before going to bed, and sometimes I have a hard time falling asleep, or I don't want to go to bed like a child.
I do too.
So like a child, I don't want to go to bed. So I'm like, I'm going to stay up and scroll. I'm going to do this. And it's getting close to midnight. I'm like, oh, I have to go to bed.
I know.
And then you have this feeling like, what could comfort you? Like some small vice, maybe, or like a sin, right? Some small comfort, anything, especially when you're living on your own, something warm, like a pet, or something easy. Easy as in, like, you don't have to make effort, but it's going to make you feel better. Well, so see, I'm reading into poetry, which I'm hoping that's
no,
what you're
it's so
supposed to.
true, because, okay, I actually, now that this reminded me of an assignment I did for one of the creative writing classes I took, where it talked about deep reading, like symbolic writing and symbolic reading, and that's what I love to incorporate in my books, is a lot of symbolism.
I think it's like music. You know those one-hit wonders where you enjoy it right away and you're like, yay, blah, 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 but then you're like, okay, I'm bored of that song. Or it could be like Beethoven, where you, no matter how many times you listen to it, you hear something new. And that's how sometimes it is with
so
books.
Detailed.
Yeah, and has different layers, and with books too.
Layers, that's what it is.
And I don't reread books a lot, but there is one book I reread 3 times, and that's because each time I reread it, it did have these kind of poetic elements to it. And like you said, you would see something different.
Exactly. You would get a new message, or you realize a detail you didn't see there before.
And even actually in your book, there are poetic moments. Actually,
there's a lot.
Yeah, there are like those where there's different meanings to it, and then it has poetic elements in it, and that's what I liked about the book that I reread 3 times. There was like, I would want to quote it or highlight it and be like, this quote, I don't want to forget this quote.
Yes, I know what you mean. You mark it up because you're like, wow. Okay, what is the book that you read 3 times? Now I'm curious. I want to hear.
Really?
Yes.
Should I grab it? Remember we did that episode and I'm like, guess which book is my favorite? And I had 3 copies of it.
Yes.
That one. It's called Matched by Ali Condi.
Yes. Okay, go back to that episode.
You know what I'll do?
We gotta go back.
Is I'll put a little square somewhere on the screen, and then I'll show us talking about it, because before bed I would read to her before bed, and she was still young, but you could still read it even if you were young. Like, it wasn't, even though it's a young adult, it's like dystopian.
Right.
So it wasn't like nowadays young adult gets really spicy, but that wasn't in those days.
It wasn't the style, but nowadays there's just a crave for.
Okay, nowadays I wouldn't read my, I don't know, 9-year-old or 10-year-old daughter from a young adult, because you don't know where it's going. I've never done an artist in residence, like, not myself, like me being the artist, but also going to one. There's been opportunities, but I haven't either. I haven't participated. I just remember once Danica was doing it, and I remember thinking, I don't know if she said or somebody said that she would read over a page or 2 of your work and go over it with you. That would be hard to do. Would you do that? Would you do an artist in residence? So let's say 3 times a week you would be available to anyone who had questions about writing?
I wouldn't mind when I have more time, but with 4 small kids, no.
You have 4 kids, and I don't think you get paid for artist in residence. Or, I don't know.
No. It depends what program you do it with.
Or if, like, you're a super famous artist. This was gifted to me, which is kind of nice. It's The Complete Poems by Emily Dickinson. So I sat outside. I remember sitting on my porch swing and I was reading some of the... I just thought it was interesting. First of all, it's a different time. And also, when I was reading it, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what it feels like to be a stay-at-home wife. Like the things you notice, you know, like she's got about the birds or the garden or just...
The details.
The details and the topic matters, sort of. So then I looked up, you know, was she married? No, Emily Dickinson was not married.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
So then I was like, okay, I totally got that wrong.
How long did she live till?
Okay, Google, how long did Emily Dickinson live? That's not how do you word it. You would say.
On the website Britannica.com, they say, but the single most shattering death, occurring in 1883, was that of her 8-year-old nephew next door, the gifted and charming Gilbert Dickinson. Her health broken by this culminating tragedy, she ceased seeing almost everyone, apparently including her sister-in-law. The poet died in 1886 when she was 55 years old.
Whoa, she was young.
That's pretty young because I'm like,
Yeah.
getting close to 50.
That's crazy.
55, can you imagine like in 5 to 7 years?
Gosh, that'd be so sad. I don't want to die. You're not gonna die. This was Emily Dickinson.
So, Google was saying that her nephew died in some tragic whatever, and then she became a recluse.
Was it
She
a
said
nephew or a neighbor?
Neighbor, but also nephew, or just neighbor? And then she became reclusive, and then she died?
Yeah, she died of a broken heart.
It's tough for me with poetry because I'm a very sensitive, but also what I read is what I assume it means, if that makes sense.
Because there's double meanings. Like it's
So I find that hard.
Poetry reminds me of, I can't remember who it was by. I know you can look it up. It's called The White Elephant. It was in school. I learned it in school.
Did they make it into a movie, or am I thinking something else?
There is a short on YouTube.
Oh.
But it's basically these, without spoiling it, there is like, they're talking about a procedure. This guy and this girl that are together are talking about this procedure, the surgery that they really want. He really is insisting she needs to get, and she has a little bit of doubts about.
So when you got to the end, you were like, oh, and then you went back to see it.
Because I was trying to figure out what it was about, and I couldn't get it right away, so I actually ended up YouTubing it, and someone broke it down piece by piece where the symbolism connected to that conclusion. I was like, oh, okay. That makes so much sense. But there's a point to this. I find poetry's a lot like that, like very symbolistic writing.
Okay, I found this. You know these? The thing is, I don't know what's inside, like the answers.
Oh,
because
wow.
I forget.
Yes,
I found this in the garage, so of course I know that you pick a color. Do you remember these games?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to pick.
Okay, I'm gonna pick a color. I'm feeling blue.
B-L-U-E.
Number 8. I'm gonna pick number 5 because my son's obsessed with number 5. There's nothing in it! What is this?
No, I swear there was.
Nothing in it. Yes, in October. What? Hey, there's one or
What's
two.
happening in October?
Halloween? This is Halloween.
Oh my gosh, October was when we started. Remember our first episode was it? No, it wasn't a Halloween episode.
We're writing our own future.
In October. Thanks for this positively poetic time with us.
See ya! Oh, I know. I've been staring at him the whole time. Did you
really?
learn? Yeah, I've been like, oh.
That's our poetry segment. Thorsten.
Thorsten.
I'm so sweaty and I'm stuck to my jacket. Okay.